my calls are all, they're all moderated. So like it is right now, if you're not in my phone book, you have to tell them who you are first. My phone rings, I pick it up and it says, a call from Nancy Foote. Do you want to accept? And I can say yes or no. And I can press, you press the numbers and then the call comes through. So I did call all of my families. One of them I found out wasn't, it was really weird. It was a storefront, and then it was the aunt, and they didn't speak English, and it got very complicated. But I was finally able to get a hold of the family. If you took pictures during the school year, this is a really good time to get them into the hands of the kids. Send them digitally through email, or if they have poor internet, do what I do next, which is I send letters, okay? So you can send them the pictures digitally or send them through pictures. I also do video messages. If you're uncomfortable getting in front of a camera, now is the time to get over that. And I hate to say that because a lot of people are not comfortable being in front of a camera, but you really need to be. Imagine, if you will, that you're a kid and you have a 90 average or a 96 average or an 89 average or a 69 average. And you haven't been doing the work because you've been told that, like our principal did, and it was a beautiful conversation that he had, a beautiful video. He said, now is the time for growth, not grades. We are talking about growth, not grades. That's no longer our interest. We're not worried about grades right now. So you have a good grade. Are you going to do the work? Now, if you're a gifted kid, yes, you're going to do the work, probably. But if you're not, maybe you're not so motivated. So maybe you're like, I don't know. I don't really feel like it today. I want to go swimming. I want to do this or that. And you open your email just to see what's going on. And there's Mrs. Foote. Hey, Jace, it's Mrs. Foote. I noticed you didn't do any of the work last week. And you know what? It was a really cool lab we had last week. So what I want you to do is go back and do last week's lab and just get it into me, because I know you're going to find it interesting. And by the way, this week's lab is about reaction time. It's going to help you when you start driving in a couple of years. So can you go ahead and do that too for me? And if you're Jace, what are you going to do? Because you got my face looking at you with my purple or my teal hair. You're going to get your rear end in gear, and you're going to do that. Or imagine you're a second grade kid who's missing your teacher terribly. And your teacher makes a video just for you. Now, even if you have 30 kids, or like I do 160 kids, I don't do it all on the same day. I don't do it all at the same time. And folks, I have to tell you, I don't have children at home. I have a husband, and I have an 89-year-old mother-in-law who's like a child, okay? But I don't have children at home. If I still had little ones at home, it's a different story. Your situation is going to be different than my situation. And again, I'm telling you what works for me, and it might not work for you. If my kids didn't have internet, this would not probably be a good way to go. All right. If they had spotty internet, I wouldn't probably be doing this for them. But if I had gifted kids, I would do this for them, because this would be highly motivational for them. In fact, they would be comparing notes. They would be saying, my video was 31 seconds. How long was yours? That's what gifted kids would be doing. So you got to watch out for that too. Okay. Write letters. I have Parkinson's disease. It happens to have attacked my right arm first, and I happen to be right-handed. So what does that mean? It's difficult for me to write with my right hand, but I have committed to write to every single kid. Yes, that means I needed $80 worth of stamps for the first 160 kids, the first 160 letters that I wrote. That's expensive, but it's a small price to pay for me letting those kids know that I care. I sent pictures to them, the ones that I had already printed out. I sent stickers. These are 8th grade kids. I sent stickers that I had laying around the house. Unfortunately, like you, I didn't grab what I needed when I left that last day of school before spring break. I didn't know I wasn't going to go back to my classroom. Now we have the option of going back. I can't. I'm considered high risk because of medications that I'm on. Plus, I have my mother-in-law and my husband. I've not left the house since, I think, March 9th. Literally have not left the house, have not been to a grocery store, have not been to a doctor, have not been anywhere. Okay, I take a walk at 5:30 every morning, but that's it. So I send him a letter. I tell him I miss him. I tell him I care about him. I give him my Google Voice number and say, if you need anything, here's my cell number. Okay, but I write him letters. Every single time I write like 3 a day, maybe 4 a day. Sometimes if my hand's good, I'll write 5. Every single time I get an email back saying, oh my gosh, Mrs. Foote, I can't believe you wrote me a letter. I just was shocked, and I'm so happy, and it made my day, and I'm so sad I'm not going to see you again. That's the girls. The boys are like, thanks for the note. And that's only because their moms made them write that. But those letters have become very good for me, and it's a very good way to get in touch with them. So whether your kids have reliable internet or not, you can send them a letter. Birthday cards and birthday phone calls have been very, very popular. I can't run out and get birthday cards. I didn't even buy any from Amazon. So I have some old stamps and some postcards. So I've been doing birthday postcards. And what I'll do is I'll call the mom in the morning on the kid's birthday. I've mailed their card earlier. And I'll say, can I please have Austin's cell phone number? I'd like to call him around dinner time and wish him a happy birthday. And the parents are just thrilled. So then I call him around dinner time and wish him a happy birthday. And I kind of have the same spiel I give. And then I ask if they want me to sing. I have a horrible singing voice. In fact, when my grandson, who's now 13, was 3, I was pushing him on the swings, and I was singing, I believe I can fly. And he said, Nana, stop singing. And I go, why? And he goes, you sing bad. Well, to this day, he apologizes for that, as he should. Anyway, so I say to the kids, I've taught about 8,000 kids so far. Yes, I've kept track. 8,000 kids so far, and I've only sang to 4 of them would they like to be number 5. I've kept track of that too. And most of them, well, actually, they've been letting me sing lately, which is kind of frightening. One child did tell me that he wanted me to keep, conserve my energy, so that was nice of him. Anyway, birthday cards are very powerful. Read to your kids, and this is something you can do even if your kids don't have good internet. I have been reading to my students since I went to a workshop by Jim Trelease, Trelease. He's the read aloud guy. He has the read aloud handbook. If you don't read to your kids, whether they are your biological kids or your students, start. And a perfect book to read aloud to them if they are ages maybe 4th grade and up, and I don't care if they're all the way up to seniors in high school, is a book called Frindle, Frindle, by Andrew Clements. That's the first book I read to every group. Now I read books like to my 8th graders that have more to do with, there's a hint of science, a wisp of science in it. And I read aloud the last 5 minutes of class. Well, the problem is with us leaving is that, the kids wanted to know how the book ended, right? I was off on medical leave a few years ago, and I was off for about, the rest of the school year, actually, from spring break on. And the kids were dying to know how the book ended. So I started making a podcast almost for them, and because they had to know how it ended. With this one, I did the same. I read the rest of the book. We did a Zoom call. We do a Zoom call every day at 2 till 2:30. In school, I only read 5 minutes, but 2 till 2:30. We finished that book. I read them another book called 100 Days of Sunlight, which is a very good book. And now I'm reading a book called Restart to them. I have better response to that, reading that book, than I get to having when I do class. I have about 50-ish kids who come every single day to listen to me read a book that they could easily read themselves. Now, my book choice is always this. It's got to be something, and I'm looking at my time because I don't want to go over. It's got to be something that that is interesting to both boys and girls. It's got to be something that is socially acceptable to the conservative community I live in, and it has to be something that they haven't read before. I like to get advanced reader copies of books, which is books before they're published. So they're going to be published. They're just not out yet. I get them free from an organization called NetGalley, and you can just go on www.netgalley.com. Tell them you're a teacher. Takes a little while to get approved, sometimes not very long. And then you go on and you pick out what books you want. Then they go to the publisher approves them, and they send you down a digital copy, like a Kindle copy. That's how I got 100 Days of Sunlight, and some of the others I read. And the kids absolutely love it. I don't know why it's so popular, but it allows me to have that connection with my kids, because after we're done reading, we turn the microphones back on and let them turn their cameras on, and we just sit and talk for 10 or 15 minutes. How's it going? What's for dinner? What irritated you today, or anything you want to talk about? And it's a good way to stay close to your kids. Oh, I'm right there, netgalley.com. I should be using the presentation view on here, and I don't. Again, postcards, if you don't want to do letters, postcards are cheaper, stamp-wise, and you probably have some laying around the house. When you talk to your kids, take lots of notes on what they like and what they don't like. One of my young ladies I haven't heard from very much, so I, on one of her Flipgrids, which is a video response to a question, she responded to me. I made a Flipgrid back to her. Again, it's digital, so you have to have good internet connection. I commented, it must be difficult to not be practicing soccer with your team. I hope that you have a place that you can practice soccer at home. She immediately got back to me and said, I can't believe you remember that I love soccer, and we went off from there. So that was good. All right. Oh, and talk to the parents. The parents are your friends. They really are. You probably already know that. Okay, so many free things out there. How do you know it's good? And I'm looking at some of the other questions. Somebody says, nice engaging students long-term online. Make sure you tell them that you are their teacher forever, and articulate that to them. Tell them that. I always tell my students they have a lifetime guarantee. Unfortunately, now it's my lifetime, probably not theirs, because I'm older than them. But my very first students that I ever taught are now in their early 50s, right? Because I started teaching like 30 some odd years ago, and they were high school seniors at the time. So when I look at my principal, he could have been in my first class, because he's like 51. And so I still have kids from my very first class who I'm in touch with. There's like 4 of them, but still, I want to have that relationship with them. I'm still in touch with my 6th grade science teacher after all these years. Teaching online is it's an art, and it's something that can't be done in one webinar. Many years ago, I decided that I was never going to pay my student loans back. And the way I was going to get around doing it, and this is before the student loan forgiveness program for public service, is that if you took 6 hours of classes, you could put it in forbearance or deferment or whatever it is. I was teaching at the community college, so I could take 6 hours for free. And so I took enough to get certified in distance learning, class design, and then distance learning class presentation and all of that. It was fascinating, but designing a class online to be taught distance learning it's quite an art. And for us to just be thrown in there, I guess it's good, because I don't know about for you guys, but for us, the grades are, again, for growth, not for grades. That helps a lot. So it's more enrichment. But if we have to start the fall like this, it's a whole different beast. It's a whole different beast. At least for my team, I'd say we probably need to work I'm going to guess 80 hours this summer just to get the first quarter where we want it to be ready for kids. I'm going to guess that. There's so many things here. Everybody's free right now, right? Because they all want to be our best friend, because we're up a creek. But did you ever go to that website where there's like 90,000 things there? Look around, find something that looks interesting and try it. Okay, just try it. You try it. Pretend like you're a student and go through it. But here's what I have to tell you. Don't marry a technology. Don't marry it before you know it's a good fit. Don't commit to anything before you know it's a good fit. Try it, okay? Try it. But here's what I really want you to do. Try to break it. Because kids will. So you might as well try to break it. I know that's what I always do. That's kind of how I got involved in Inq-ITS. I couldn't break it. In fact, one of my kids found a mistake in Inq-ITS, and he contacted Inq-ITS, and it was a little tiny thing, and they fixed it right away and got back to him. Do you remember Tiber? And he was
He
do you
was a
remember
great
him?
he was a great kid. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And in fact, yes, I think he's graduating this year from high school.
Oh my lordy.
I'm
That
pretty
would
sure
make
he's
sense.
graduating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Whoa.
And
Okay.
and so he contacted them right away, and they fixed it right away. I mean, it wasn't a big thing, but really, when you find some technology that you want, your job is to try to break it, because the kid's going to do it. So you try to do it first. So here's what I always say: when you find something good, I want you to, I think this is the next one. Yeah, date it. Just date it. Okay. If it seems like it's really going to work, then let it move in. Let your kids play around with it. Don't make a commitment. Somebody's going to say, so what's it going to take for you to make this, to get this in your classroom? And you'll say, well, how about a trial? You know, don't commit to $100,000, guys. You don't have it anyway. Your principal's not going to let you do it right away. See if it's a good fit. See if it's going to work with your kids. If you've ever looked at the national board process, they always talk about these kids at this time in this setting. And that's what I want you to always look at. Your kids at this time in the setting you're in. Because what works for these kids today may not work for these kids, different kids tomorrow. Look at where we are now. Right now, what we're dealing with, the stuff that works for the kids today, with what we're dealing with, the quarantine and all that stuff, might not work tomorrow if you go back to school. What are we going to do? The social distancing thing. It might not, the same stuff that works at home might not work tomorrow with them. Okay. And watch out for the pricing. If you've ever, nobody ever does this but me, but if you ever play those little stupid little games on your phone and the ads make you crazy and it says pay $1.99 to remove the ads. Okay. So you'd be like, okay, I can't stand the ads. I'm going to do $1.99. Yeah. Well, one of those was $1.99 a month. But if you don't read the fine print, you don't know that. Right? So be very careful with the pricing, because you don't want to get caught up in something like that. So why use virtual labs? And again, I'm a science teacher. And a couple of, I don't know, must be 3 years ago now, because the kid's a junior, going to be a senior, says, I've been explaining to him, the class, I said, well, we're going to do some virtual labs. We're going to do virtual labs because of a couple of reasons. Number one, experiments take too much time sometimes. If you're doing a plant growth experiment, it may take 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks for that plant to grow for you to see the difference. And then you're going to have to do it again and again, because you're going to want to run your trials more than once. If you do virtual, you can have that plant growth, that same growth, in 3 minutes instead of 3 months. Okay. Sometimes the materials or the equipment are very expensive. You may need a very costly piece of equipment for one experiment. I don't know, my school doesn't have $10,000 for one piece of equipment to run an experiment that I'm only going to use one time. Or they're unsafe to use in your classroom. I have a wonderful vent hood and nothing to put in it because I can't use anything that I can't get in the grocery store. All right. So those are the three things. When I had this issue, my one of the people, I actually had the school board president and the assistant superintendent's kid in the same class. Well, the assistant superintendent's kid went home and told his dad, Ms. Foote told us the reason we don't do labs is because we don't have any money. Okay, that's not exactly what I said, but it is kind of what I said. He was new to the district, and he called me the next day and he said, we need to talk. And I'm like, uh-oh. He said, my son told me you don't do labs because you don't do any money. I said, well, not exactly what I said, but whatever. And he goes, he's right, you don't. It ended up working out to my advantage, but still. All right, so why do I use Inq-ITS? And this is not a plug for Inq-ITS. I don't want you to think that it is. I don't want you to think you sat through this whole thing so you could have a commercial. because there's nothing I hate more than like feeling like I've been dragged along and then, oh, now I have to pay for it, because it's not. I use Inq-ITS because it's been tested. I use Inq-ITS because it works with my kids. Okay, that's why I use it. Because if I need tech support, it's there real time. I don't have to wait a long time and put a ticket in and all that other stuff. I use Inq-ITS because it makes me a mind reader. I am able to figure out what my kids are struggling with. I don't have to work real hard at that. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. I can use it face to face when I'm right there. I can use it at a distance. I'll give you an example. When I very first started using Inq-ITS and the blotter, I had an appointment off campus, so I had a sub, and they were using, I gave the kids an assignment. But even though I wasn't there, I could watch what they were doing. And then we were using Edmodo at the time, so I could address a kid's needs on Edmodo by looking at Inq-ITS. I don't know if that makes sense or not. I would look at the blotter and see that a kid was struggling with independent, dependent variable, and then I could go on to Edmodo and say, hey, Jackson, look at, you're messing up your independent and dependent variable. Here's what you're doing wrong. And even though I wasn't there, I was, at this meeting. Hard to learn skills like making, not the if-then hypothesis. They could say the if-then hypothesis till the cows came home. What they couldn't do is pick out what data either refuted or supported that hypothesis. They'd run all these tests, but then they couldn't figure out which ones they wanted to use. That was hard for them. This really made them pick it out. And then I don't know if you've ever thought about DKDKs. I'm going to loosely quote Donald Rumsfeld here, and he said, there are known knowns. So there's things that we know, like that you know how to tie your shoes. Okay, that's a known known. We have known unknowns. So there are things that you know that you don't know how to do. Like I know that I do not know how to swim. Okay, that's a known unknown. Where we have problems are where we have things that we don't know them. So if you've ever thought that you knew how to do something only to find out later that you didn't really know how to do it, this is especially true when I always had a problem with this with math, where I thought I knew how to do a problem or a process, and I did it over and over again on homework and everything else. And then I found out when I took a test that I had no clue what I was doing. Those DKDKs, the things that you don't know, you need to be able to identify them. And your students need to be able to identify them so they can be treated and taken care of before they get to the test. And that's something that I don't know if that was part of the plan, but what I found is Inq-ITS helps me identify those and point them out to kids and get to the point where the kids can identify them. That's pretty powerful. I think anyway, helps me. So, how am I on time? Am I good? Did I hit it? Oh, I hit it. Okay.
Good. Yeah.
So what questions are there? Should I stop sharing my screen so I can look at the chat, or what?
No, I can see the chat if anybody wants to ask any questions.
Okay.
Or
You need me to talk about anything else? Any any questions? Anything else I need to expound on? Or let me look at these other questions.
So someone asked how you record the audio, like podcast style.
Oh, you know what? You could just use your phone. You can always use your phone. When I taught gifted a long time ago, like 12 years ago, not 12 years ago, probably 10 years ago or so, I used to have that little cheapy iPods, the little cheap ones, and we did mental math podcasts. And we just use those little cheap ones. You can actually just get a voice recorder for like less than $10, and you can record it on that too. And then we just uploaded it. Ours are on TeacherTube. They're still there. Look for mental math podcasts. You'll hear these kids. Now one of them's graduating from the Air Force Academy, and he was in 4th grade when he made his first podcast. It's still up there. Millions of views, millions of downloads.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Someone asked, Christopher, I'm assuming you mean how to use Inq-ITS in the classroom versus distance? He said yes.
You can use it the same way. I would assign a lab. If I'm in the classroom, I can walk around and look over kids' shoulders. If I'm distance, see, the way I do it, what I do is I do a week at a glance. So I give the kids, here's the week at a glance, here's your lessons, and here's when things are due. But they don't have to do it on those days. They have to do it by the due date. Do you see what I'm saying? And what I do is but with Blotter, I can go on and I can see when they are doing it. The reason I do that is because our kids don't have one-to-one devices. And so I can't say you have to do it at a certain time, because what if your dad or your brother's on the computer and you don't have access at that time? I would love to be able to say you have to do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 10. That's not an option at my school. But I can go on I can go on Blotter, and I can see when they're working on it, and I can see if there's a problem. And I can intervene right then if I need to. What I really love, though, is that when they leave my class in a regular school setting, and they go to another class, and they have a device in each class, we have classroom sets, and I can see they're working on their science in like social studies or something. If you're a social studies person, sorry, but I think it's cool.
So Christopher was asking if you can explain how Blotter works. And do you want
magic.
Me to?
Yeah, because it's magic as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how it works. It just tells me when a kid has spent too much time doing one thing, or when they're inactive, which means, they're looking at something else on their computer, or when it's like magic. It figures out that they've got their independent and dependent variable mixed up. You go ahead, explain more.
So basically what it does is it's a real-time alert. So it's you're not gonna see anything pop up if any of your kids aren't working. So in this setting, if you are able to say, hey, we're all gonna do this together, and I'm available if you need help on Tuesday between 10 and 11 o'clock, then that's fantastic. And if you're able to do that, we're actually looking for some teachers to participate in a study. And if you're able to do that, please let me know, because it looks like we're hopefully going to get a National Science Foundation grant to look into how teachers can help students in a remote setting. But in any case, what you can do if you are in that setting, that's great, because then you can just have Blotter open, you can be helping students. But for most teachers, I think that it's just kind of, when the students can do it, they can do it. And so what you can do is you can have that tab open with Blotter. And so it can just be populating, and you can be working on something else and then click back over, and you will see any alerts that pop up when students struggle. So if a student gets through the entire lab without any problems, you will not see anything pop up at all in Blotter. It only pops up to say, hey, Bobby is collecting data without controlling for his variables. And so you would only see that if the students are messing up. And then if you have the ability to get a hold of Bobby, you can, or maybe Bobby gets a hold of you and says, hey, the system's broken, I can't move forward. Like, oh, well, I see here that, you're running a bunch of random trials, you haven't controlled for your variable. And so you're able to help the student because you can see exactly what is going on, which is really nice. Myra, can you send me a message? She said she'd be interested in doing some research. Myra, I'll go ahead and type in my email address, charity@apprentice.com. And just like Nancy, you were saying that as far as using it in a distance learning environment, and one of the things that I enjoyed doing was like having my students do the Inq-ITS phase change lab, and then turning around and having them design their own experiment, which there's not a lot of things that students could do at home right now. but they could design their own phase change experiment because everybody has access to water. And so that's something that they, that they could do. And then also just the ability to, one of the things that I loved was I had for years and years and years, my assessment for seasons was having students look at a planet that had no tilt at all and how would that impact seasons. And students always had a really hard time visualizing that. So I loved when we got to build an Inq-ITS lab that actually did that, and the kids could play around with a planet that had no tilt. And then divergent and convergent, I really enjoyed when we built those, because obviously my students can't physically, push plates together or separate them. And I always used Snickers bars, which was, the kids got super, super excited about the candy bars, but it was nice for them to be able to actually move the plates around, whether they're pushing them together or pulling them apart. So helpful. Any questions? Anybody else? Nancy, about Nancy's hair color brand.
They bought it for me.
Your grandkids bought it?
And my son.
Oh my goodness.
Because he said, oh, this is the one to get. And I said, yeah, no, it's $1 an ounce. It was $22 for the bottle. I'm like, no, I'm not spending that much money. He goes, we'll get it for you. I'm going, okay, well, he's the tech person. He works for Blizzard. He's got tons of money.
Oh, that is hilarious. My husband's mother would probably do the same. She would do it. My mom, not so much.
I feel like an Oompa Loompa. Of course, my granddaughter then goes, how do you spell that? I'm going to look it up. I'm like, oh, you've never seen Willy Wonka? So now we have to watch Willy Wonka.
No, you have to read it to them first.
Oh, it's a great idea.
You have to read it to them, Nancy.
Yeah, I'll do that.
We read it last summer.
It's a great idea.
And I think it was because of that book that my kids are forever convinced that movies are far inferior to books.
Well, they are.
They are, yeah. But it's like, we read the book and then we saw the movie and they were just
I'm going to do that. I'm going to read it to them over Zoom. Now, see, I'm talking about, I do that for my students.
Now do it for your grandkids. Seriously.
I'm gonna do that, yeah.
It's amazing. Like, it's the best. It's the absolute best. Okay, if nobody else has any questions, we're going to let you go.
Thank you guys very much for joining me. I so appreciate it. This has been fun.
It has.
And you have my email if you need anything. So do you want my cell phone number too?
And I will share this presentation, by the way, with everyone. I'll send this out to them as well.
Very nice.
So I'll send a copy of the recording. You'll have to forgive me because I started the recording after our discussion about your hair.
Oh, that was the best part.
I know, I'm sorry. I forgot.
It's okay, you're forgiven.
Okay, good. And so I'll send the recording and I'll send the presentation. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful day. And Nancy, as always, it was so wonderful talking to you.
Oh, good to talk to you.
And
maybe next time I'll have orange hair. You never know.
It sounds great. You should make a similar deal with your students.
You know what? I thought about it. I did tell them that I would email my hair, or I would straighten my hair.
Oh, perfect.
Go straight next time. So.
And I hope you can see the comments because you're getting lots of thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
Yes,
take care,
wonderful.
you guys.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Bye.
Alrighty, bye.